Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, I'm Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 230 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Wow, your comments are welcomed. And you took advantage of it this week, which makes me really happy. You can comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Do not forget the K in cognitive, or on our group on Ravelry. Lots of you chimed in this week. It was really a lot of fun for me. So we get a lot of warm thanks. As always, to our own Turbo Gal, thank you for your wisdom about retirement, and thank you for your good wishes as I head there in another 2 years. Slowly, painfully slowly. Sometimes too fast, sometimes too slow. It's very weird. But it helps to hear somebody who's crossed that line and is encouraging. Meanwhile, our own Chris Ah is cheering me on in reading Georgette Heyer, of course. And yes, Chris, please read The Black Moth. I'm amazed there's one you missed. It's it's a lot of fun, and I talked about it in the last episode. It is way too good to be a first novel. I'm really impressed with it, and obviously I do think she edited it, and I don't care what she did. I can't write one that good. If she wrote that, and she didn't edit it much, and she wrote that at 17, that explains why I'm a psychologist and she was a successful novelist. Meanwhile, we heard from our own Read Knit Snark, who turns out to be a Finch buddy. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for forming that habit. Yes. I really appreciate that. Glad to know somebody else is using Finch. I heard about another app called Habitica. I need to go look at it. Apparently it's closer to playing a video game, like a D&D type of game. Finch is more like a dollhouse compared to other video game type things. But it's nice to have another person here who I know on Finch. Yay! And then there was 2Y, 1X Mom, who got into the whole e-reader discussion, which is lovely. And she said, and I'm just going to quote her, I'm currently using the Kobo Libra Color and the Kindle Color Soft. The Kobo Libra Color has buttons, which I love, and a stylus. However, I am too entrenched in the Kindle universe to make a complete change. I will say that I downloaded most of my Kindle books, and the process through Calibre is very simple to place them on the Kobo. That is, the Calibre app you can put on your computer, and it'll strip off DRM software from Amazon so that other readers can use it, I believe. I know Kindle, that is Amazon, has been trying to interfere with that, but apparently the Calibre thing still works. The Kobo store is not as impressive as Amazon, and it does not have all the Amazon deals. To be honest, Kobo is just another electronic bookstore. I am still leasing books. It is kind of like switching from light brown eggs to dark brown eggs. Unfortunately, Amazon is still the best platform to get the items we need. Stores in our, I think she's saying county here, just don't keep any stock, especially electronics. Yeah, I know how you feel. I'm in the boondocks. And there are some things, because I'm out in the boonies, that I'm going to buy from Amazon. It is very true. So I do know how you feel. And when something major like the closing of Jo-Ann Fabrics happens, people like us have to really look to find local resources to replace that kind of superstore. And this is a problem in the States. You're always kind of trapped. We have big corporations, and it's really hard not to use big corporations as your resources. And it's exactly why you say that the big stores, the big giant mega corporations, they can afford to run deals. Once upon a time, Barnes & Noble an American bookstore chain that I don't know if it's overseas or not. B&N said that they were going to drive the Amazon people out of the ebook business. This is a long time ago, easily 18 years or so. So Amazon responded brilliantly. Now, Kindle is Amazon's e-reader, and B&N has the Nook. And Amazon dropped the price of the e-reader. Now, the Nook and the Kindle both came in the beginning at about $120 each, I believe, in the early models. And Amazon dropped the Kindle to like $60. Of course, B&N could not keep up with that. Amazon had the resources of a superstore that sells everything far beyond books. Barnes & Noble sells books, some nice book-related toys, manga and comic books, some records and albums, but they have never expanded the way Amazon has. Well, let's face it, when people talk about ebooks, they don't talk about the Nook. It is still out there. I was just in a Barnes & Noble. They sell them just fine. But it's like a Kobo in that they're never going to compete with Amazon. It's just a different company altogether. I've never used a Nook that I remember, or at least haven't tried one in years. Kobo has the advantage that it does take a lot of different formats. It's kind of more open platform. Amazon takes the Amazon platform and it takes PDFs. But Amazon has great deals. They have a huge library compared to everybody else. This is the problem. It is hard to get away from Kindle ebooks. But you don't have to read everything on a Kindle, and that's where the Kobo machines come in, but they cost more. Now, she says she has the Libra Color with buttons and a stylus. My stylus software, that is all on my Remarkable, and that is another creature. The Remarkable is really around so that you can sign in wet ink, as it were, any kind of PDF and take notes on it and save the notes on the actual PDF as you want to save it. It's like a really excellent notebook. And yes, please, everybody who's snarking off about you can do that on an Apple tablet, you can do that on a Kobo, you can do that on a MobiScribe. Yes, I know you can. I know. We're not going to talk about the Remarkable, which I'm still a dedicated, happy Remarkable fan, but there's a lot of ways you can do that same kind of thing now. The Remarkable is just the first. Okay, the Kobo versions, from what I can see, different design. Kobo has different size screens, a lot of different models and price ranges. They have color. So does Kindle. Kindle now has the color soft, whatever that is, because I don't care. I do not need my readers to be in color, which is surprising. I always thought I would. But no, as it turns out, that doesn't matter to me, because when I am reading a book, I want the book reading experience, including I do not want the backlighting in a daylight frequency, which will keep you awake at night. Now, I do have Paperwhites, Kindle Paperwhites. I bought them to store, at that time, the bulk of my Audible library because they have more storage. They have 32 gig, whereas the other Kindles have 16. So I was buying it for the storage, and then realized when I got it, yeah, I'm also getting that daylight frequency on the screen. Now that's very nice. If I save all my Ravelry downloads to a Paperwhite or to any color e-reader, that will look better and work better. I don't really worry about that. I backed up my Ravelry stuff to my Kindles, but I'm not worried about that because once I have finished indexing all the Kindles, and basically I'm doing a spreadsheet and I add 10 books a day to it. Right now I'm working on Kindle number 2. Okay, when I finish doing that, I will be able to search for anything I want, including my Ravelry patterns, and that'll be great. And the whole point is that is just storage at this point. I'm not using the Kindle to read Ravelry patterns at this point. If I want to do that, I will do that in Remarkable, because Remarkable will show me my markups on the actual patterns. So why am I putting them on Kindles? Just backup storage. It's just another way to have backup. There's no real reason to have it on a Kindle reader. That's just my idiosyncrasy, and I will probably think about that better and find a better place to store those Ravelry patterns where I can have color and backup. Kindle, if you do that on a color one, that will work. Remarkable, you could do that on Remarkable, the actual Remarkable I have is black and white. But the application for Remarkable, which reads your Remarkable no matter where you are from the Remarkable Cloud, that is in color. So there are plenty of options here. The Ravelry stuff is not a crisis. I backed it up because I just wanted it stored somewhere beyond Ravelry, just in case. I'm not expecting to need that, but you just never know. The way things come and go out of business these days, I'm not expecting Ravelry to tank. I'm just being uber careful here. That is a problem for another day, gathering them all into one place where I can see them in color. I could use Google Drive. I'm not really worried about Google clawing them back or anything like that. Anyway, this is a long way to say thank you to Y1X Mom for what you're saying about the e-readers. You make a lot of really good points. It's nice to hear someone talking about the Caliber being so easy to use. My experience of it was the same. It's good to hear someone assessing the Kobo store not as impressive as Amazon on both variety and the deals. Sometimes we're just going to be stuck with Amazon. My approach to these things, as I keep trying to say when I talk about the various boycotts, is I'm trying to cut down dependence. That's all. And the other thing, I want all my books at hand. I want to just be able to open my books. I don't want to have to dig through files on a computer and then transfer them into my lone Kindle reader. I want a stack of Kindle readers, each having 250 books. Scary but true. I'm up to 6 of them now. Okay, meanwhile, Story and Monica Holmberg both spoke up to help me identify the Moomin who is on my new cap. And of course, as they point out, it's Snork Maiden, which I should have known because this little Moomin has a fringe, bangs, as the Americans call them. That's Snork Maiden. I'm so delighted to have Snork Maiden. This week in Barnes & Noble, I saw another cap in the series, and I believe it was Moomin Troll, and he was backpacking, and the cap was a dark cream. Yeah, well, actually a kind of medium cream. I might need that cap, I'm just saying. And yes, Monica, thank you for laughing about having a hawthorn named Nathaniel. I personally believe any American who is literate should have a hawthorn in their yard named Nathaniel. And Nathaniel the hawthorn was a frequent feature during the quarantine. I used to do video journals on Instagram, and I would talk to all the plants. I would sit on my front patio when we couldn't really leave the house, and I would talk to all the plants around me, which is how Audrey got her name and how Nathaniel got his name and a few others. And we also had Lizard Boyfriend, who was a lizard who visited every day. For those of you who wonder, yes, we are probably on generation 30 of the Lizard Boyfriend descendants, and they still do visit me in the summer. Then there was DC Elaine Knits. Elaine pointed out that, as I'm quoting her, this was too funny. On like Monday, I forwarded the news clip from CBS and the Knitting Tree store to Dr. Gemma. By the way, I put the link to that in the show notes under these warm thanks. And I suggested it for her next field trip, and she had just returned. She said, I will look for the clip. Well, I put it in there. I had recently gotten the pattern for the Emotional Support Chickie, that is the little knitted chick, to make for a local organization. And this is a possible replacement, she says, for a couple organizations I knit with. Okay. She made the chickie with Aran weight, and it's supposed to be about 6 inches tall, and she's been making them for Easter gifts by using sock yarn held double in place of the Aran weight. Really cute. Yes, they are. And it was very funny that Elaine was saying this to me right after I got back from the Knitting Tree on my last jaunt. So I did put the news clip in the show notes. I put the link to it because I couldn't resist it. It's a very charming news clip. I wish they'd spent a little more on the store and a little less on sort of random commentary in the beginning. But it was very, very nice to see the Knitting Tree get the attention. They have literally sold something like 30,000 or 50,000 of these kits and patterns for the Emotional Support Chickens. So more power to them, and always good to hear from you, Elaine. And yes, I remember that your sister is Karen. Meanwhile, having thanked all these people, I also want to thank, of course, everybody listening right now, and my community on Reddit and on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley. A lot of pictures in this set of show notes if you want to see. I have to tell you, there's one. I woke up one morning at 6 and I looked out the window and the view is out there and you can see behind the red shed down there that looks like a little barn, there is a thin film of mist. That was the Soledad Canyon, which is sort of 2 valleys away from us, was just filled with mist lying on the ground. And everything above it was crystal clear. And it was so beautiful. And the sky was this wonderful sort of mercerized blue that I could not resist it. So that picture is in there. Just a reminder, CFR 11 is scheduled for October 11th, 2025. Mark your calendars. I could not resist, since Easter was this weekend. There was a very funny meme on Icon Has Cheeseburgers, which is, of course, a Funny Cats channel. And it was just a good, timely photograph. This cat sitting in front of a pillow that looks like it has a print of a stag's head on it. And with the cat sitting in front of it, of course, it looks like the cat has the stag's ears and antlers. Couldn't resist. What's on my hooks and needles, you are wondering? I haven't finished anything, but made some good progress. I'm afraid the stash toss, well, I keep visiting knitting stores and, well, I am counting the emotional support hen as one skein, which she pretty much is, and a few little bits and bobs. And then with what I got this weekend, we're at 38 in and 18 out. Knit Gemma, knit like the wind. Crochet Gemma, crochet even faster. I have been working on the novice slipover in Malabrigo Rios Water Green. I didn't really want to. I really wanted to do the sleeves of my Virgo sweater, but I just didn't get in a place where I could sit down quietly with the pattern, pick up the stitches and count. So I just didn't get onto the sleeves. It's a shame, because you know how sleeves are. Once you sit down and do a sleeve, you do a sleeve every weekend to get your sweater finished, is usually the way that works. Or you do a sleeve and a fraction of the second sleeve, you know. So I really need to get onto that. Meanwhile, in the novice slipover, I did finish the neck and shoulders area. And now I'm working down the upper front. I'm very close to joining where you knit in the round and just work your way down to the ribbing at the bottom. So that's very nice. And the Blue Iris Blueberry Waffle Socks, I believe the Blue Iris yarn is from Ba La Jolla. I think I forgot to say that last week. A lot of forward momentum on that. Number 1 is finished. And number 2, not only am I done the ribbing, but you can see in the picture that I am working my way down the leg in the Blueberry Waffle Sock pattern. So that's been going very well. Otherwise, I haven't worked on anything else because I'm just using all my time to ride trains and have fun. So no, nothing on the quilting either. In Dizzy Blondes, I really went bananas on the plying last week. So I want to make at least a Sophie scarf and a hat out of this stuff. So if you look at, there's 3 pictures. The first is the 3-ply. 1 ply is the silk and camel. The other 2 are the BFL in Black Bowie Shadow from Lisa Souza. These are all the Lisa Souza BFL Black Bowie Shadow. The second picture is straight up chain plied because I only had it on 1 bobbin by the time I finished the others. So I chain plied the remainder of the Black Bowie Shadow, which was very satisfying. The third picture, there's all 3 bobbins, and there's 3 of them, and on the left, that's the Black Bowie Shadow plied with the cashmere. On the right, you can see in the background on the white bobbin, that is the camel hair silk plied with the Black Bowie Shadow, and in the foreground is just the pure Black Bowie Shadow. And these are all on my Electric Eel 6.1, which has been working just great. Meanwhile, let's get on to a strategy, shall we? Actually, what I was thinking about this week is sometimes you just have to ride it out. One of the most common things you hear as a therapist or a psychologist or a social worker, you know, some kind of therapy clinician, is how people hate living with not knowing. It makes us very, very crazy. And humans really have a hard time with this, to the point where humans will do stupid things to get it over with rather than live with the not knowing. I can give a lot of extreme examples of this that will just bring the mood right down. But the point is, patients come in and they tell you they want to do something stupid because they're tired of not knowing. They don't know what to do about their partner who's in therapy, so they figure they'll go talk to the partner's therapist. You don't get to do that unless the partner gives permission. What's really going on? It's really great your partner's in therapy. But now you have to live with the suspense. What are they saying in therapy? Are they getting help? Are they making any change? Is the therapist doing any good, etc.? There's a million examples like that in medicine. We get a test done and we get tense when we don't hear the result of the test. There's nothing surprising about that. There's nothing wrong, crazy, immoral, or whatever. But we don't like having to live in not knowing. So a major adult skill is to learn to tolerate uncertainty, to allow a situation to continue to some kind of natural solution, to ride it out, to let the other shoe drop, as they used to say. It's very hard. In my job, you get a kid and you know they're having a problem and they won't tell you the problem and you can't help them in therapy, and everybody, the parents, the kid, is getting mad at you because you won't fix them, but you can't even get a chance to fix them. And the reason is you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for them to get in so much trouble that they finally tell you the truth or somebody else does so that you can intervene. This goes on constantly and we don't like it. And it is really normal not to like it. Now, I sound like I'm saying two things at once, that it's okay not to like it, but at the same time, you just have to put up with it. That's exactly what I'm saying. You don't like it, but you tolerate it. Sometimes you have to just wait for something to give, for something to change. Now, in cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a version of this that is called urge surfing. And I really like urge surfing. I've talked about it before. Urge surfing takes the point of view of the depressed person, and they're just miserably depressed. They're drowning in this ocean of depression, or they're drowning in this ocean of anxiety, or both. And the idea is, don't get in the water. Now you say, I can't help it, Gemma. I'm depressed, or I'm anxious. I'm drowning. Yeah, get out of the water. Well, I can't. I'm in the middle of the ocean. Find a surfboard, a piece of driftwood. I don't care what you call it. Climb on and just lie on that. In other words, sometimes you know you are there in the agonizing emotion. You are there. You are full of it. And you can't do anything about it because you can't get a resolution that you want. So you could fall off your surfboard and drown in that ocean of misery, anxiety, depression, whatever. Or you can urge surf. You can say, instead of letting myself fall in, I'm going to simply ride it out. I'm going to sit on the top of this ocean on my little narrow surfboard. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's very narrow, but it's better than falling in the water. So, for example, what does this look like in real life? Back in the day, my kid was having problems in his public school. They weren't teaching him. We ended up having a meeting with lawyers and the school board and everything else, trying to get him placed where we wanted him in school. We knew we had the right. The school was holding out. It was very ugly. My husband was handling it. I was at work. I get this call from our lawyer, says, this is terrible. We're losing. I'm in Los Angeles. The meeting is in our hometown outside Los Angeles. I hop on the train. I'm furious. I come driving in at high speed to the parking lot. I get out of the car. I meet the assistant principal of my kid's new school that was not hurting him. And he said, are you Dr. Massey? And I said, get out of my way. I'm going to rip some lungs out. I was so angry. And what was going on? I was failing to urge surf. I was assuming the worst based on one report. And I was just going to go in there and give in to my urge to scream and yell, because I'm good at that. And I'm very good at advocating in these meetings. And he grabbed me by the shoulder and he said, we're winning. And I said, what? And he said, we're winning. And I said, we are? I got a call that everything was going badly. And he said, yeah, until the lawyer for the other side asked your husband how he was compensating for the bad behavior of the first public school. And I said, oh. And he said, your husband gave a very moving presentation of how he's homeschooling your kid. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, we were all impressed. And I said, and we're winning? He said, well, yeah, we are, because their lawyer quit on the spot. I was stunned. Their lawyer quit because he said, this man is a great father and I'm ashamed to oppose him. And he quit in the middle of the meeting. He just quit and walked out. So that's kind of how you win. We were the only lawyer left standing. So the earth surfing there would have been simply saying, I have to stay at work, finish my job, and trust my husband and our lawyer to work this out. And I didn't. And I was not earth surfing. I was coming in hot under the collar. And fortunately, I was stopped before I could make a fool of myself. So that is a fail on urge surfing. Urge surfing is all those times you want to say something snarky in a meeting and you hold your tongue. You say, oh, I want to say this so badly, but you realize the immediate result will be that you feel relief, but the long-term result could be disaster. So you keep your mouth shut. That's urge surfing. And then, bet you anything, sooner or later you're saying, wow, I'm glad I didn't say that. Wow, I didn't know that this other thing had happened. I am so lucky I didn't open my mouth. Okay, that's all about urge surfing. We all have had to do it. It's a very normal thing to have to learn to tolerate not knowing and to ride something out, to just let things develop as they're going to develop. So what do you do in the meantime? Well, I've talked about that before. That's distress tolerance. You literally change your mind. You take your brain to some other place. Now remember, in the last episode, I talked about when you come to therapy and you think you're just going to vent. Not everybody, by the way, but some people just want to come in and repeat their problem over and over and over because they believe that will make them feel better. Not really. If it would have made them feel better, they would have felt better by now. They've already tried this strategy. It's not like it's a stupid strategy, as I said last week, but it has not worked. So we do not encourage you in therapy to do what does not work. So instead, the patient has to tolerate all these painful thoughts and feelings till they run into me. And they're kind of begging me, can you help me to urge surf, to get out of this ocean of painful thoughts and feelings? I've tried talking it out with people and it didn't work. Yeah, so it's not going to work. So this is where you have to learn to simply tolerate the painful feeling by trying to usually distract yourself or encourage yourself. And again, if you go back to the episodes where I talk about the acronyms from dialectical behavioral therapy, which are accepts and improve in this case, those are about moving your mind somewhere else so that you can ride out pain or you can urge surf. But a lot of times we just have to accept that we are going to be emotionally uncomfortable, that there isn't going to be immediate relief. And again, people always talk about distraction, like you're just trying to change the subject. You're just trying to distract me. Yes. Now in therapy, I don't normally do that unless I point out to you that I'm doing it. Like I'm modeling, this is how you get yourself out of this. It takes a lot for me to do that without telling the patient I'm doing it. I don't want to be that opaque with a patient. I want to be as transparent as I can. But yes, people put down distracting and self-distracting all the time. I have no idea why. Sometimes that's the only option you get. Okay, so that is riding it out or urge surfing. In the meantime, I put up my Finch app ID. I changed it. I'll be honest, I have two burbs. I have two different versions of it. So I put up the one I'd rather have you join because I could use more friends over there. And also I want to give a special welcome to Moose and to R, as in the letter R. You know who you are. Pretty sure I do. Meanwhile, over at Project Greenfingers, well, I finally weeded out that whole pile of weeds. You can see the picture of it, I think 2 episodes or 1 episode back. That whole strip along the front of the house. That is now all pulled. 5 minutes a day. Really surprising. Took me about 8 or 9 days to get through that. I have to be careful. I have to do it with my bare hands because I can't feel the weeds well enough to tell if I'm getting the roots out on the smaller weeds. However, I'm allergic to those weeds. So I do 5 minutes and then I have to really, really rinse off my hands carefully. So this week, I went to High Country Gardens, and the link is in the show notes, online, and I ordered Creeping Thyme and Texas Salvia That is a form of sage with red flowers. The creeping thyme has purple flowers. You can see the pictures from the High Country Gardens website. And I ordered these as ground covers for various locations in our front yard. Right along the house, I'm probably going to put some of the creeping thyme. And then along the driveway is going to be creeping thyme and the salvia. And this time I'm going to plant them a little more intensively to hopefully give them a better chance against killing the weeds against next year. And I really want to do this because last year I had Russian salvia, Russian sage, Texas sage. This is red Texas sage or red Mexican sage is what I bought this time. And when I was in eastern Washington, which is dry like here but colder, we had creeping thyme and it did fabulously in our rock gardens and around our rock paths. So I'm really looking forward to getting this back. The Texas salvia came today, so you will be hearing more about it, but you can see the pictures in the show notes. The bottom picture is the Texas salvia in full bloom as red. Okay. Meanwhile, in Offshoot, well, instead of running, I've been, of course, hiking LA, and I'm going to talk more about this in the blather, but this time I decided that I am going to go down Ventura Boulevard, down in the San Fernando Valley, and just try to go end to end of it, not really that precisely, because I wanted to check out, there were 3 yarn stores I'd heard of being there, and I also just wanted to ride it end to end on the buses. And then accidentally on Sunday, I ended up in Burbank again, in a place called Magnolia Village, and I will talk about that in a minute. But the Ventura Boulevard jaunt, I really want to tell you, this was great. I thought I'd have to take a train into LA Union and then backtrack up the Red Line or the B Line to Universal City and get off there, or I forget what the stop after that is, and then make my way, blah, blah, blah. No. Turns out that is all on the eastern end of Ventura Boulevard, which is this major thoroughfare that goes from Studio City and Universal City up through Encino, Sherman Oaks, Sherman Hills, not in this order. And gosh, it goes all the way out. I'm trying to think what the farthest west, and it may get itself fairly close to, I don't know, Calabasas or something. It goes way out there. And it has all sorts of stores and villages and strip malls and things along it. Anything you want, it's going to be somewhere on Ventura Boulevard. So I ended up taking the train just a few stops down to Sylmar, San Fernando, and getting off the train at a fairly nice station. It's very suburban, out in the middle of this, I think it's a Latino settlement. It seemed mostly to be Spanish speakers around me. And picked up a bus there, and it took me pretty much down Sepulveda Boulevard after jaunting around a little bit on Truman and some of the side streets, and took me right down to Ventura Boulevard. And then I found the wonder of wonders, the 240 bus, which just runs east to west to east on Ventura Boulevard. So you get yourself down to Ventura Boulevard by car, by train, by bus, park it if you have a car, and you can just take this bus. And it's really nice. It's a really, really easy thing to do. This was all free on my train pass that I paid $10 for the Saturday pass. You can ride all the buses and the trains anywhere you want to go. So this was a fantastic discovery. I did a huge amount of walking, and I'll come back to that more in the blather. On Sunday, I went down to Burbank. I went down really just to help my husband and my son search for a costume for my son. And it was rather a surprise that the malls were closed for Easter. I wasn't expecting that. And we ended up instead going on to Burbank, the west side, going down Magnolia, and found that there is this enormous outdoor row of stores that is Cool Boutiques and Porto's Bakery, which if you're into baked goods and sandwiches is fabulous, and all sorts of coffee stores, really just the cutest place. So that's Magnolia Village, west of the train station and the sort of downtown Burbank pedestrian area. Okay. Meanwhile, you can see I'm heading towards May 25th, which will be the Forever Brave 5K. I am not yet really training outdoors for that. What I'm doing instead is I'm back on my bike desk every morning. I get up, I take a hot shower now, And then I do 5 minutes of just top to toe stretching exercises, and that feels great. And then I get on the bike desk. And while I'm going through my morning emails and my Finch applications and anything else I need to do, I am biking. And so that's been nice. I've been putting in a good half hour, and I feel great. I'm really just coming up to speed, and I'm sleeping really well at night. So you can see the races I'm signed up for so far. Pretty happy about this. I'm sticking with the 5Ks. In the fluffy books, in my Georgette Heyer project, I finished listening to The Unknown Ajax. That is just as good as I thought it was. That remains one of my absolute favorites. The trick at the end with the smugglers is delightful. And the whole way that the names are used, the myth of Ajax is used, it's really well done. Meanwhile, I started listening to Black Sheep again. Black Sheep feels like Heyer light. It's a perfectly good book. It's very pleasant to read. The only trick, as it were, the only clever bit is, of course, who is the black sheep and what does it even mean to be a black sheep? And what happens when you're a black sheep? Can you ever redeem yourself in any way? It's not the worst black sheepiness you'll ever hear. The people who are the black sheep have not committed the worst possible crimes. It's just very interesting, and it plays loosely with the idea that being a black sheep may mean that you are the one who has a certain kind of courage that the rest of your family is missing. It does toy with the idea of sheep as docile and unthinking, and the black sheep as the one who is forced, because they stand out by being different, to think outside the box. It is interesting. It's a very simplistic plot compared to some of these others, and it's a good book. I'm still reading Simon the Cold Heart. That's a long, cold slog. Mostly whenever I pick up that particular tablet that it's on, I read it. It's okay. I'm not wild about it so far. Something I really like, Minnie and Pearl Strings. I got talked into these. I did not really want to buy these. I got these at the Little Knittery, and I saw them in this little tiny container, and I opened it up, and they're these little thin tubes of plastic, very thin. And I thought, what are these? Is this going to be some kind of waste yarn that you weave through your project so you can always rip back? Like, you know, a safety line? Is that what that's going to be, a rescue line? And I thought, well, what's the advantage? How do you even get them on? And so the owner tried to explain it to me, but really, you can see in the picture what you do. You ram one end of the tube onto the tip of your knitting needle. And it's going to have enough friction with the knitting needle to stay there. And so it takes a real act of courage, but you ram it onto the knitting needle, and then you pull the knitting needle all the way through the live stitches, dragging this tube after, and it makes a rescue line. I was kind of scared to do this, but I did it while I was doing the novice slip over, and I got to the end of the back, and you have to put those stitches just on waste yarn or on some kind of rescue line, and then you go up to where you started and you pick up for the straps. And then, of course, you finish one strap and you've got to put that on a rescue line of some sort. So these things come in a little round tin, coiled up, and you get one long one that's about 42, 44 inches. And then you get two short ones that are, I would guess, 20 inches or so. These are really good lengths. So my first one that I used was the long one, and it's half of a vest. So about, in my case, that's about 20 inches. I got plenty of room to spare on this one. I may be getting the lengths of these wrong. The idea is these are good. These are not try-on tubing. They're kind of like try-on tubing. It's very much the same idea, and you could use it that way. That's how they advertise it, that you drag it through your live stitches, and then you put it back on the needle, and you drag it in reverse, pulling your needle through the live stitches. As far as I could tell, that will work. I did this very, very carefully. I was so afraid that I would pull the tube off the tip of my needle. I did not. So when I threaded this tubing through my live stitches, It worked really well. I just stuck that tube hard on the end of my size 7 needle tips and then carefully back the needle out. I was using a circular to do this. I was doing magic loop with a 40-inch circular. So I had, 20 inches of the needle and cable in there. And I backed it out carefully, worked just fine. And I did the same when I got to the straps. And when I had to rejoin for the straps, to get down the front yoke, and I had to rejoin those stitches, again, I very carefully attached the tubing to the needle and gently pulled the needle through the stitches, and it worked. It worked really, really well. Take your time and it should work. Just make sure you've got that tubing jammed on there. So you can see a picture of the tubing jammed onto the needle in the first picture, and then you can just see it sticking out of my live stitches on the bottom, I think that is, of my slip over vest that I'm making. Meanwhile, yes, you can find the back episodes from the original series 1 through 50 at that link where it says original series. These are on Proton. You can download them there. On to the blather. So in the blather, let's talk about my trips this weekend. So I went down Ventura Boulevard, as I told you, and I also went to Magnolia Village. And let's start with Ventura Boulevard. So I took the Antelope Valley line from one of the Santa Clarita stations, I forget which one, and I went down to just outside of the Santa Clarita Valley. You go under this junction of the 5 and the 14, and you come out in basically the eastern edge of the San Fernando Valley. And I only went to the first stop, which is Sylmar San Fernando. Very quiet little stop, not a huge platform anymore, but nice thing, it's got a bus plaza right attached to it. So I caught a bus there, and I ended up going down Sepulveda, and that took me to Ventura Boulevard by the Sherman Oaks Galleria. If you're a local, you know what I mean. And then I went westward on the 240 bus, and I was going to go way to the west to a store called, I think, Zoe's. Glad I didn't. It looked like it was closed on that Saturday, so I said, okay. Turns out it's permanently closed, but it's still showing up on Google searches of yarn stores in that region. So you should know Zoe's. No, she's now selling out of somebody's garage. So instead I ended up at L'Atelier on Ventura. Now, when my husband's eyeballs were exploded, I used to go to this place. It's near all the specialist medical doctors on Ventura. And I used to walk up the road about half a mile because I had a lot of time to kill while I waited for my husband to get his laser stuff done every day. And they had a little shop, and it was very nice. And what I remembered about it was the community. High-end yarns, I thought there was nothing for me there, but great community. So I thought, well, what the heck, I'll go back. And I almost didn't, and I'm so glad I did. They moved it down to, it used to be close to Balboa. Now it's close to Havenhurst, if you know the area. It's in a big commercial-looking building. And there's no sign on it, so somebody made a beautiful paper sign that says yarn. You can see pictures of it, because I really want you to be able to identify the building. It's easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. And I just had a great experience in this store. There's me posing with their yarn llama that they post outside to show you that the store is there, because it's easy to miss. And you can see the racks and racks of notions, buttons, lovely samples. There are the yarns I bought. I'll come back to that. I got myself a little needle sizer and stitch gauge from Emma Bell, who I really like. And next to that is a bag she makes with adorable camelids wearing random knitted objects that may or may not fit them, cowls or collars or whatever. I bought it. It was a ridiculously low price for a handmade object with such a beautifully printed fabric. Then you can see there's a rack of Woobles, and the picture, the third picture I show you, the third picture under the yarns that I bought, the third picture under that, those are kits that are above the Woobles on the rack, and they're beautiful and much more aesthetically nice to look at. They don't look like little kitty kits. And those are crochet kits as well. And I really am happy that L'Atelier stocks those, that they're not just Wooble dependent. Because after all, being Wooble dependent basically killed Joann Fabrics, apparently. And the Woobles are great. I really am fond of them. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact a lot of other good groups are making excellent kits for crocheting little amigurumi animals. So it really thrilled me that L'Atelier had those. You can see too, they've got a huge amount of notions and equipment and gear. Big, big open space with excellent seating, and they also have just all sorts of odds and ends, all sorts of fibers, really, really nice selection. Of course, I thought I was going to get away from here not buying anything but that bag and that little needle measuring gauge. No, they had a wall, I say a wall of Malabrigo, and it was stuffed. Now, there's a colorway that has tortured me for many moons, Almond Blossom. I've never bought it because I've never seen enough of it when I see it in a store. I need at least 4 skeins to make a vest. You can tell where this is going. Yes, they had 4 skeins. Yes, that's why my stash toss went up by those 4 skeins. And then you can see next to it a colorway called Sagittarius. I've got a lot of the cherry colored Cerezza left. That to me looks like a contrast yarn for another red sweater in Cerezza. I just could not keep my hands off it. The Cerezza, like the Almond Blossom and the Sagittarius, these are all Malabrigo Rio. I am a pathetic Malabrigo Rio junkie. You can blame that on Carla, alias Quandam Quadrat, who did this to me last time she came down here and went on a yarn tour with me. Okay, but I cannot tell you how nice this store is. Here's one of the reasons it's nice. You go online and you can buy a membership. And if you have the membership for some nominal fee per month, every time you go in the store, they will help you with anything. They have free patterns, discounted patterns. You get a shop discount. And if you walk in and your needlework is screwed up, they will help you fix it. I watched Cora, who was working that day, handle this with one of the nicest people I've ever met, whose name I forget. They were just so nice. And she brought in a very complicated baubles pattern. And Cora just sat there and fixed it for her and then worked out where the problem was and showed her how to correct it. I loved the community here. It was warm, friendly, welcoming. People came in and they immediately sat down and joined in. I was stunned. This is up there with Knitting Tree LA for superb, superb community. If you go for no other reason, go for that. Now, would I go there for my yarns? Yeah, I would, to be honest. They have Malabrigo. That's all I need in this world. I was impressed because I didn't remember thinking of them in their original version further up the road as being that good on selection. I was wrong. I think what they do really well is they pay attention to their community, to the people who are sponsoring them by having memberships. They really are tuned into that, and they are stocking the store in good response to that. And it shows so well. I just thought they were terrific. So no regrets. I walked out of there with the yarn I wanted. They have some lovely cashmere, mohair, all sorts of high-end stuff. But I found my wall of Malabrigo. I found really excellent crochet kits, super, super notions, lovely sock yarn. I just had to try not to look. This store doesn't look as stocked as it is because the space is big. I was fooled. Now looking at the pictures, I'm thinking everything I wanted was probably there or some variation of it. Here's the other great advantage. It's on a street next to the corner, but it's not the corner. The corner is Gelson's Market. Gelson's Market. If you want to have a day knitting, you go to Gelson's, you pick up lunch. They have all sorts of fresh foods and stuff. Some of you will remember me going to Gelson's with my husband when we were going through all the eyeball explosion stuff. You can see my lunch. They have a make your own poke bowl bar. And you can just get the sashimi, which I did. And they have all sorts of other things, fresh roasted chicken. Oh, I just can't even tell you. Fresh sandwiches, fresh everything, fresh deli. I am a glutton on deviled eggs. There you go. There's my 6 half deviled eggs. They were super. They were exactly what I wanted, along with all that tuna ahi. Oh, Lord, it was good. So after that, I felt revived, and it was still early, and I didn't want to go home. So I said, I'm going to go down, 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 way down the road, like a good 25-minute bus ride, to La Knitterie Parisienne. Pardon my American way of saying that. And you can see I got 2 skeins there of that beautiful yarn. It is a cotton linen viscose blend. That is exactly what I wanted. What I wanted to make, if you look at the second to last picture above the Gelson's Market picture of my lunch, you will see a top. That's the kind of thing I want to make. Just a sleeveless shell for the warm weather. And this is the yarn I want to make it in. But I'm going to talk about La Knitterie Parisienne in the next episode. Okay, so on Sunday, as I said, I got up and I just wanted to run away on the train, and my boys were freaking out because they were unprepared for my son's show, and he apparently needed a costume. But it's a very simple costume. It's Gilded Age American male clothing, which looks a lot like 1970s male clothing. So we needed a vintage store. All we needed were dress pants in a lightweight fabric and dress shirts in lighter weight fabric. So we had a hard time settling down because all the Goodwills were closed. All the men's warehouses were closed. All the places we thought we might at least get the pants because of Easter. So we ended up down at the mall, the Burbank Town Center, which is, I told you about it last week or the week before. Oh, the week before, where, it's just slightly, it's north of that beautiful pedestrian district I talked about. And it's so nice down there. But it was all closed. They let us in the mall to use the restrooms, but it was closed for Easter. So we regrouped. North of the mall, immediately north, you walk across a parking lot, is a California Pizza Kitchen where I can get food that's keto enough. And also a very big Barnes & Noble, next to where there used to be a giant IKEA that they relocated to an even more giant IKEA. All right. So we went up to California Pizza Kitchen and we sat down and we all pulled out our phones and we all started looking up vintage stores. And I happened on Chance Vintage and then realized there were a lot of other vintage stores around there. But we went down to Chance because it looked the best and the most eclectic. And you can see the information page there. They are open 7 days a week, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's their phone number. There's their address on West Magnolia. I did not know there was such a thing as Magnolia Village. Turns out West Magnolia in Burbank is Magnolia Village. All these vintage clothing and funky boutique type stores, coffee houses, just great. I can't wait. That will be one of the places I go back to explore again. But there is the storefront of Chance Vintage, which is certainly interesting looking. And we went into it and we found beautiful stuff. We found 2 shirts that I spent today ironing and touching up for him, washing them very thoroughly and all that. And 2 pairs of pants, which are getting washed and will get their ironing tomorrow. And I'm very, very happy. And then I found they do a thing I love, and I really recommend you look at this shop if you ever make it to LA or Burbank. I can't recommend this enough. They upcycle old clothes the same way that store I told you about, Sway, does down in downtown LA. This is another version of that. They do their own. The guy who runs this, his last name I believe is Jacko. Really nice guy, Mr. Jacko. He came up with this idea. Okay, so they have about a quarter of the store is their repurposed clothing. And I was so impressed. The first thing I saw were tote bags. And what they'd done, they took denim work shirts that obviously were too stained to return to service, cut them into pieces, and made these tote bags. These things were beautifully sewn with industrial sergers. Very heavy stitching, very thoroughly done. $7.50. So cute, so nice looking. And then I saw the baseball jackets. There were 2 of them. They were made out of kimono dress fabric. Now, kimono dresses were a big thing in the 80s. Skin tight, satin look-alike dress. It's actually a form of viscose, which again is related to like rayon and polyester. Okay, a chemical product. Viscose was designed, by the way, I just found this out from the book Fabric that I was reading or listening to. It was designed to imitate silk, and it does so very, very well. They had taken apart these dresses. These are skin-tight short dresses women used to wear. I had one. They're beautiful. They took them apart, cut them into blocks, and then they reseamed them to make these fabulous baseball jackets. There were two. I bought the one that fit me better, and I'm really happy with it. It was in multiple colors, this bright cobalt blue, dark plum, and dark forest green, and then it had dark plum ribbing. There was some kind of machine trim, and it's a long ribbing, like 2 inches long, folded over in half and still 2 inches long. And I thought, how is this still on the shelf? This is so beautiful. And I thought easily this thing's going to be $300 or $400, but I went over to look at it anyway. $63 I bought it. There was one in black squares of this fabric. I would have bought it, but it was just a size that I thought would be a size too small for me. So I brought home my kimono jacket, and I'll have to try and get pictures to show you either next week, or maybe I'll see if I have any and I'll add them to the show notes now. So that was our epic trip, and now I know that I am going to go back both to Ventura Boulevard and to Magnolia Village and walk through them slowly and really enjoy them someday. By the way, we went into the Barnes & Noble next to the California Pizza Kitchen by the Burbank Center, and I picked up another book called Secret Los Angeles by a different author. I've now got two books with the same title. This one is by two former Los Angeles tour guides who are not natives of the city. And it's not quite as good as Danny Jensen's version, but there's not a lot of overlap, which is cool. So I got another one of those. Meanwhile, my son continues in the chorus line, and now he has pants and shirts to do that. He also performed in his school talent show as a member of the chorus, which is named Chorus. I'm not going to say it, it's a pun. And there is a picture there of him holding the microphone, singing his solo few lines in his lovely bass voice. We were so proud of him. And then you can see when we went to California Pizza Kitchen, my kid eats pizza in his own unique way. He eats all the middles first, because that's the good part. Then he leaves the crust. If he's still hungry, he eats the crust. There you go. I'd like you to know he did eat the crust. So this week we had the boycotts, April 18th, 19th, and 20th. This was basically on the big online sellers and the big box factory stores like Walmart, Target, well, that's kind of consistent, and Apple and Amazon. And there was a lovely meme somebody posted, and this, I wanted to show you this because of finding Chance Vintage. I would not hesitate to shop at Chance Vintage. I would not hesitate to buy anything there. The clothes were clean and really nice clothes. And I love that they're doing the upcycling mission by remaking clothes. But I want you to see this meme. By keeping your clothes for an extra 9 months, you can reduce their carbon footprint by 20 to 30%. So in other words, what's happening to most clothing? They're not staying in people's closets. In fact, one study showed they're getting worn an average of like 1.5 times and thrown out into a landfill. So the goal here is keep your clothes. Don't keep buying new. Recycle your clothes. Care for your clothes. Upcycle your clothes. Make things out of your clothes. Cut them down and use them for new things. If you don't want to live in a polluted world, then we have to learn, particularly in America where we're consumer crazy, we have to learn to just have a smaller wardrobe of reliable standards that we can clean and maintain and repair. Meanwhile, you can see, as always, the usual community resources, including a lovely meme that involves a porch duck wearing a hand-crocheted sweater. It was too good not to put in there. You can see the calendar for everything upcoming in the Santa Clarita Valley, and for all my races, and for CFR 11. Minerva gets the last word. So Minerva was listening to me talk about urge surfing, and she snuggled down in the middle of my bed, thereby guaranteeing that I will itch for days until I wash the sheets on Saturday morning. But you can see her snuggled into her nest, which was my nest, in the middle of all my pillows on my big bed. And she wants you to snuggle down in your own happiness and your own happy place and just ride things out. No matter how bad things seem. Just found out the Pope died today, and you know, it's not a disaster, but I kind of like the guy for what he was, you know. We got to ride these things out. There will always be change. There will always be the need to urge surf. Try to snuggle down in your happiest, best place, the best you can make for yourself, and just ride things out. Minerva would like you to know cats have always known this secret. In the meantime, remember, we are a community. When we do things to support our community, we are supporting our individual well-being also. So please get all your vaccines, take care of yourselves, do everything you have to do for your local communities, for your school, for your college, for your workplace. And everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.